Welcome back to the theater of dreams and harsh realities. Welcome back to Anything You Want. You are here because you understand that the story doesn't end when the credits roll. You have joined our community because you refuse to accept the simple, surface-level explanations for why a show soars or crashes. You crave the deep, resonant analysis of the alchemy that happens between actors when the director calls action. Today, we are opening a file that feels less like a tabloid rumor and more like a cinematic study in contrasts. We are looking at one actress, Mahassine Merabet, standing at the epicenter of a storm that has stitched together two completely different worlds. On one side, we have the soft-spoken giant, Cenk Torun, and the international allure of Adam Farah. On the other, the street-lit fever dream of Sref Ruya and the white-hot intensity of Çağatay Ulusoy. Before we decode this map of chemistry and career strategy, please, solidify your commitment to the truth. Press the subscribe button, ignite the like button to help us conquer the algorithm, and if you truly wish to support high-caliber, independent storytelling, our join button is your gateway to the inner circle. Your support allows us to analyze the silence between the lines. Today, we choose between the waltz and the sprint. Let us begin. In the wildfire of celebrity chatter, some statements are designed to soothe the masses, while others are sparks intended to ignite new controversies. However, Mahassine Merabet's recent remarks regarding her experiences with two of the industry's titans, Cenk Torun and Çağatay Ulusoy, somehow managed to do both simultaneously. Pressed by the media to compare these two distinct forces of nature, she chose words that sounded like a lullaby but thumped with the resonance of a war drum. Two different worlds, two different partners, and yes, authentic chemistry. It was polite, balanced, and ostensibly gracious. But for those of us who know how to read the unvarnished reality of a business ruled by timing and tone, it was a map. Hidden in that restraint was the admission that her career has unfolded in two sharply drawn chapters, each defined by a specific kind of magic and a specific kind of tragedy. She did not rank them, and that wasn't an escape. It was a stark reminder that in the high-stakes gauntlet of Turkish television, chemistry is not just about the romantic kiss in a close-up. It is a survival tactic. It is the oxygen a show needs to breathe in a weekly ratings race that takes no prisoners. To grasp the weight of her words, we must first step back into the moody, sophisticated glow of Adam Farah. This was a project built from international DNA, reassembled with care for local tastes, offering a style of storytelling that asked viewers to lean in and listen rather than sit back and watch. It was a universe where love didn't flare up in an instant, it was laid down layer by layer, like bricks placed with care under the shadow of looming danger. In that universe, Mahassine Merabet and Cenk Torun found a rhythm that didn't shout, it resonated. Cenk, often described by crews as a man of few words and precise choices, brought a stillness to the screen that had a pulse beneath it. There were no staged scandals, no clattering photo ops designed to force engagement, just craft. Placed opposite Mahassine's quicksilver responsiveness, the two created the kind of equilibrium that doesn't happen by accident. People from inside the production hint at a careful, almost sacred process behind the scenes. It wasn't just about rehearsals. It was about late-night conversations regarding emotional beats and personal boundaries. It was a quiet pact to give each other space when the cameras went off, allowing the tension to build naturally. The contradiction of Adam Farah, however, was cruel. While international audiences sent waves of affection, and message boards across the globe glowed with appreciation for this patient heartbeat, the home front didn't keep pace. The airing windows played tricks with the show's momentum, and the measured tempo felt like a mismatch for a local crowd hungry for immediate adrenaline. Adam Farah proved a painful truth, that even a beautifully calibrated connection can lose to the clock, and that artistic patience is a luxury that Monday night numbers rarely afford. I have to pause here and ask you, the critics of Anything You Want. Do you prefer the slow-burn romance that builds over episodes, or do you crave the instant, high-octane passion? Which style keeps you glued to the screen? I am fascinated to hear your preferences in the comments below. And remember, if you appreciate this deep dive analysis, clicking the join button is the best way to help us keep this channel independent. Across town, under the harsh glare of neon and fog, Sref Ruya spun a completely different spell. If Adam Farah was a waltz, this was a sprint with scraped knees, a world where romance kept company with menace. Enter Çağatay Ulusoy, commanding, magnetic, a presence that seems to swallow light and radiate it back with double the intensity. This marked the start of a new chapter not just for Mahassine's filmography, but for her persona. She demonstrated a willingness to step into a darker mirror. The blueprint of Sref Ruya promised speed, conflict, and kisses that tasted like a dare. It depicted a city where a whisper could feel like a threat. Yet, the set told another story entirely. The schedule turned relentless, and script pages changed hands so quickly that the actors' emotions struggled to catch up with the plot. Early on, sparks flew, the kind you feel in your chest more than you see with your eyes. A look stretched a second too long, a breath stilled in a doorway, hands that almost touched and then, agonizingly, didn't. Social media rushed in, hungry and euphoric. The hashtagged edits declared Mahassine and Çağatay a force of nature. The fan-made trailers suggested the series would become a cult classic. But potential is glass frail. By the second season, the roof tilted. The pressure mounted, the channel's caution light flashed, and the writing table turned into a revolving door of ideas. The plotline blurred, the heart of the characters went off axis, and the viewers, so quick to fall in love, became just as quick to leave. The axe came down fast. In this industry, it always does. When a show falls, the blame rarely lands on the writer's room or the executives. It lands on the faces the audience recognizes. Was Çağatay too intense? Did Mahassine shift tones too quickly? The questions multiplied in the press while the simplest truth stood in the corner, overlooked. The story didn't hold. That was the fracture nobody wanted to name. So when Mahassine said that audiences shape projects, to some it sounded like a truism. But if you listen closely, you hear a sigh of resignation. She was not passing the blame, she was admitting a reality that makes artists clench their jaws. She defended her work with the same calm dignity. The connection she found with Çağatay, she found with Cenk too. She did her part, she felt the scenes, she carried the weight. What she cannot control is the cut that lands on air or the pivot drafted at 4 a.m. by a desperate production team. Then came the split-screen moment that always follows a statement like that. Two fan armies formed as if by instinct. On one side, #Cenk and Mahassine rose with the steady confidence of people who adore nuance, who celebrate a love that breathes and deepens instead of burning up. On the other, #Çağatay and Mahassine answered with the fire of a crowd that wants tension they can taste, who mourn the story that could have scorched the earth if someone had just stepped aside and let it. Gossip pages fanned the flame, resurrecting old scenes to serve as evidence, slicing and splicing together theories like detectives with beautiful suspects. But maybe the most telling part of this entire chapter is the way Mahassine has been changing under the spotlight. It's becoming clear that her choices aren't just about creating heat, they're about defining a trajectory. Standing beside someone as contained and deliberate as Cenk Torun, and then walking into the storm with someone as commanding as Çağatay Ulusoy, is a strategy. It says she will not be locked into one kind of woman on screen. She can anchor a story's tenderness, and she can turn around to play a lover who might break your heart, or her own. We are dissecting the anatomy of a career in the spotlight today. If you are enjoying this narrative journey through the highs and lows of Turkish television, please take a second to like this video. It tells us that you value depth over drama. And for those who want to help us keep the lights on and the stories flowing, our super thanks feature is always open. Off camera, Mahassine's mantra is simple and revealing: keep learning, especially from those who've learned how to survive. Every set becomes a seminar, every misstep a case study. From the rubble of cancellation and the applause of international fans, the same truth rises: neither the quiet, exacting harmony she built with Cenk could lift Adam Farah over the local headwinds, nor the kinetic, crackling charge with Çağatay could rescue Sref Ruya when the script lost its compass. The story is the crown, and it chooses its monarchs mercilessly. Still, listen to what she's been communicating without saying a word. Partners will change, seasons will end, the tide of ratings will go out on a Tuesday with no apology. An actor's task is to keep walking, to keep working, to risk being misunderstood and still show up. That's how she came out of a cancellation intact and out of a slow burn with her head high, by refusing to throw anyone under the bus and by acknowledging that the beast they're all riding bucks when it wants to. And so, this conversation isn't going anywhere. It will return every few months, as familiar and necessary as a tune you can't help humming. It's a parable the industry tells itself in order to learn that chemistry isn't a lightning strike, it's a craft requiring patience, trust, and sometimes an editor who knows where the heartbeat lives. The fate of entire productions still gets decided by a number flashing on a screen the morning after, which doesn't make the labor any less noble, it just makes it braver. If Mahassine's statement had a destination, it wasn't a person, it was a principle. Success is not just applause. It's endurance. The connection she wove with Cenk Torun gathered praise far from home, in places where audiences wanted to sit with the characters and let the emotion steep. The spark she struck with Çağatay Ulusoy remains a haunting if only, the sort of what could have been that fans will debate for years, pulling frames apart to find the moment it slipped through their fingers. Through it all, the constant is Mahassine Merabet, adaptable, unafraid, and the gravitational center of both storms. And that, my friends, is the tale of two worlds stitched together by one actress. We have walked through the silence of the soft-spoken giant and the noise of the neon storm. Now, the conversation turns to you. Do you think Sref Ruya deserved a second chance? And was Adam Farah simply ahead of its time? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Do not forget to subscribe to Anything You Want and ring that bell. We are your home for the truth behind the glamour. Join the family if you can, and until next time, remember that the story always chooses its own ending. Goodbye.